Ladies and gentlemen, tapping and scraping our way into your earbuds this week, we're back with the Strings and Things podcast. On this show, guitarists come by to change their strings, tell their stories, and play some music. Our podcast goes unplugged this week. Our host Patrick Grant is in the front parlor with James Moore, co-founder and director of the Dither Guitar Quartet. They've got a couple of acoustic guitars with them, and they intend to use them. We're going to find out how James made it from the San Francisco Bay Area to the new music scene here in New York. He'll tell us about the strange playing techniques he uses on his recent album of music by John Zorn. And we'll hear an exclusive rendition of a Chet Atkins ballad. So, let's get to the good stuff and join Patrick and James right now.
Our guest is James Moore, known for his work with the Dither Quartet, the solo guitar works of John Zorn.
Yeah.
And what else would you throw in?
Oh, I have a ton of different projects, as any musician trying to make a name for themselves sort of has a steady diet of things. I recently came out with a duo record with my colleague Andy Springer, and I have more of a rock band kind of situation called Forever House, and sort of a folk improvising band called The Hands Free. You know, a whole eclectic array of projects of friends and different productions, dance and theater that I play for, and just somehow becomes a strange Frankenstein of a career. So
It's what we got to do. Well, good. Well, glad to have you on the show.
thanks.
Tell us, what kind of guitar did you bring for our show today?
I brought my National Steel String, which is my favorite guitar. And so when you said you wanted to change strings, this is one that I've been playing a lot, and therefore I need to change the strings a lot on, and it's due. So I've been enjoying playing this. I've had the guitar for probably 10 years now, and came to it because, well, I'd always heard the guitar, and I've heard Nationals before and loved them, but
Well, for someone who doesn't know, and because we're not on TV.
oh, you're right. Well, they can't see. Well, many people associate it primarily with sort of blues and country style. If you've ever seen a guitar with a metal cone around where the bridge of the guitar meets the body, it's essentially an amplifier. And I've been trying to think of the best way to describe it to people who don't know. And I still, I'm not an expert about the mechanics of these things, but I've decided, a friend just the other day said, oh, it's like putting your iPhone in a cup to make it a little louder.
Yes.
Is essentially what this cone is doing. The bridge is resonating against.
I've done that, but even a cereal bowl.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's twice as loud.
So you get a much more resonant sound out of it, and I was drawn to it because, especially I'm trained as a classical player, I found that I was just never loud enough even on a steel string, and suddenly the depth that I needed and wanted was there when I started playing this instrument. And I was first drawn to it because I wanted to play a piece by Lou Harrison, who is a 20th century composer that I was always a big fan of. And his last piece before he died was for a resonator guitar. And it was even more so, it was for a just intonation resonator guitar with special frets to get these certain subdivisions of pitches.
I worked with Lou, so especially
nice.
through a lot of gamelan work. And
that's great.
When I was working at CF Peters. So I'm not surprised. But I just want to backtrack a second. That cone-shaped part, it is called a resonator, though, right?
Yeah, they call it,
I did not know that Lou Harrison's last piece was for a resonator guitar.
Allegedly, he was never totally happy with the sound, and then when he finally heard the sound of a resonator, it sort of called up a lot more of the instruments he knew from working with Eastern music, and he made it happen and wrote a beautiful piece. It's called Scenes from Nek Chand.
Okay, like a sitar uses a gourd as a resonator, for example. Yeah.
So I wanted to play that piece, and I was sort of intrigued. And then the minute, I tried a bunch of these, and I just loved everything I played on. I loved playing Bach on it. Then, of course, playing folk tunes on it sounded amazing too. So it sort of was a great way to bring all of my training, something that I could play fingerstyle on, something I could play popular styles on, something that I could, as you might hear in the Zorn record and in the James and Andy record, and in my group, The Hands Free, I play this a lot. get a lot of experimental sounds. Because the other thing, you've got all sorts of strange sounds you can make out of this thing too, and it amplifies well. Anything that anybody has ever done at home or when they were a kid, I just haven't stopped.
All the harmonics sound great.
Yeah, harmonics are amazing. You can get really high up there. When you have new strings, you can get especially high up on the harmonic range. So that'll be another reason to change them.
Another reason. Well, my guitar pales in comparison. It's just an Ovation balladeer. But the reason why I have this guitar and why I got the guitar, it has a super shallow body, so it emulates an electric guitar, just for the ergonomics of the right arm. And it's a guitar that I got for work with Robert Fripp's Guitarcraft Guitar Circle. So its tuning I picked today because it's tuned in fifths with a low C and a G in the bottom. And it goes up fifths with a minor third on top. So all of the pentatonics are of a C pentatonic scale are in the open strings. And I happen to know that we'll be playing a piece later that really needs you'll be dropping down to a C and a G in the bass, and I figured, well, I'm already there.
Ooh, that's low.
Boy, we better change some strings.
Seriously. Getting some great extended techniques already.
That's right. Let's put that in a Paul stretch and take it out to like 30 minutes. How come I feel depressed at the end of this piece? Because it's 30 minutes.
I think we should try to rehearse the piece now before so we get that nice arpeggio going.
Sound like rubber bands. Wanted to ask you, do you remember the first piece of music you heard that really grabbed you? Because we all grow up in a world where we hear music, but
Oh, yeah.
you just said like, hey, they really got your attention?
I grew up around a lot of music. My dad was a very avid listener, had a huge record collection, and also played piano really well and a few other instruments. My mom sings in the church choir occasionally, and my sister played, and my grandmother that I grew up with actually was a composer. And even though she wasn't composing when I was born, especially when I started studying music, she was the one who said, oh, well, this is what a major sixth is, and this is how you transpose things, and this is, she was... And yeah, she was a really fascinating person. She studied with Ernst Krenek in the 40s, and
Johnny spielt auf?
Yeah, which actually that's a good segue to I can plug something. I can because I have a week at the Stone.
Oh, we never do that here.
In January, and one of those nights I'm doing a whole night of my grandmother's music.
Oh.
I'm excited about that.
Well, can I ask her name besides
Virginia? Well, her married name was Virginia Plazer, but. When she was composing, it was Virginia C, S-E-A-Y. And she was doing very well for herself, but at a young age, but then sort of life changed and she stopped composing around the time that she was 30, I think. The earliest memories are things like, the tape while I'm falling asleep listening to Simon and Garfunkel or, something like that. Or like my sister had a Madonna tape that I have a memory of. Material Girl, but I don't know how I love that song Material Girl, but I don't know how deeply influential that was.
We'll take into account how young we were too. We didn't have a lot of other music to hold it up to,
I was always drawn to things that were a little out of the box. When I was young, I was really into Weird Al. I mean, that was not necessarily out of the box for somebody who's young, but I liked things that were funny. And I liked things that had funny sounds. Being that it came out of California, that never really ended for me.
Being that it came out of California, did you have the Dr. Demento show?
Oh, that actually was an influential record for me. It was an anthology that was given to me for Christmas when I was young, around in my Weird Al phase, and I had a 2 CD Dr. Demento set that
Okay.
I discovered a lot about. That's probably the first time I heard Zappa was on that.
Don't Eat the
And-
Yellow Snow. That was a huge
Yeah.
hit on that.
That Dancing Fool was the one that was on that anthology.
Okay.
As I, got a little older and started, finding the music I liked and getting into rock music and stuff, I started listening to a lot of late night college radio, and then sky's the limit there,
Well, let me ask you, was there a particular piece or how that made you say, hey, I want to play guitar, or how did your instrument end up being the guitar?
Well, I wanted to play guitar because more can be connected directly to liking rock music. I was a huge Guns N' Roses fan. I wanted to play that stuff, and my sister had the guitar. I learned piano and clarinet from a young age, but my sister was the one who had the guitar. It was under her bed, and I stole it once and never gave it back. And continuing the narrative, I remember hearing Fred Frith for the first time and being like, wow, that's something special, and seeking those things out, and buying my first Sodic records and knowing that I wasn't sure what I was going to get, but that it was at least going to be interesting
Right.
and probably amazing. My piano teacher at the time, I remember I went to her and I said that I wanted to, for the school Christmas concert, I think I'm probably 13 or 14, I wanted to perform Christmas carols, but I wanted to put a bunch of things inside the piano.
Okay.
And create percussive sounds. And she said, well, that's awesome, but people have done this. I'm like, oh, and she gave me her copy of John Cage's Silence.
Okay.
And so then I started listening to Cage a lot because I was like, okay, this guy's figured something out here. And I don't think I ever actually played that Christmas gig, but it at least led me on a path.
You were busy reading Silence.
I just continued listening eagerly, but also always listening. Not only the strangest things I could find. I've also always loved folk music and many other styles. And then in college, a couple things. Got into playing classical guitar, and that was a real way to dig in and become obsessive about learning a piece and be exposed to more music like that. And I also had a couple radio shows, and I would say I found so much music because I had to play music. As I had one show that was pretty free form, but was sort of a jazz show, and that's where I really got into Mingus and really got into Eric Dolphy, and then I had a contemporary classical show, and that's the first time that I heard things like Bang on a Can. Sorry, they probably get that a lot. A lot of some, including some of the composers that I work with now. For me, it's always been just seeking out new things. And another thing, at an early age, I'm definitely guilty of being more narrow now, but when I was my most musically hungry, if I didn't like something, that was my reason to listen closer to it.
Okay.
And so there's some records that I ended up loving that on the first listen I was like, I'm not sure what this is.
Well, I think
But
a
I
lot
wanted
of
to
us
know.
have that experience because we're challenged, and especially when we're younger, and then you sort of hate yourself for liking it, and then the next thing you know, you want all your friends to hear it.
Yeah, totally.
You're the guy now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So James, where are you from then?
I am from Redwood City, California, little south of San Francisco. I grew up there, through high school, and then went to UC Santa Cruz for my undergraduate, And that was a very awesome, beautiful place. And then not long after that, I moved to the East Coast and went to Yale for grad school. The teacher there, Benjamin Verdery, was, sort of a mentor of sorts. And I had studied with him a few summers. And the natural progression brought me out to these parts. And I mean, I love California, but I was always excited by New York and always sort of had a fantasy of moving out. And so New Haven was a nice stepping stone towards that. So got to, sort of started dabbling in a few gigs and stuff while I was there. And then drove a U-Haul. Actually, my 10-year New York anniversary was at the beginning of last month, July 1st. Yeah.
So that's the one of the nice things I find about the city too, is pretty much anybody you want to meet who's doing what you're doing, you'll eventually meet him here.
Definitely.
Which I want to use as a segue into your work with John Zorn. Like, how did you hook up with him?
He's a ubiquitous presence on the scene here. So, I think I had ended up on an email thread or two with him over, the course of time. And he had heard about some of my playing here and there. And it was actually the Book of Heads that was, I had some gigs back in California, a little tour that I was doing, and I really wanted to program a few of those. I had sort of a bootleg copy of them that a friend had given to me, and
the Book of Heads being his solo guitar work.
Yes, the Book of Heads are a collection of 35 etudes that are all generally using a language of extended techniques, but also a lot of stylistic reference. I mean, I think what he's going for is complete virtuosity in every sound realm of the guitar. So to being able to treat it like a percussion instrument, but also be able to play a classical lick and a blues lick. And one of the coolest etudes, there's sort of a channel changing quality to it, where you're supposed to play like 11 different players and consistently skip between them. So it's actually
genre hopping, as it's known,
uniquely challenging thing. And for me, it's perfect because even though I'm trained as a classical guitarist and I've studied a bit of jazz and played in rock bands and done all these things, I've never felt like I've done one thing. And so that at least is one way that you can do all the things. So I was really intrigued by those, and they're also just fun and funky and beautiful. And so anyway, I sent him an email, said, hey, I'm interested in doing these pieces. And he said, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Let's work on it. And that sort of evolved slowly over the course of a couple years to an album project and a film. There's a beautiful film that's part of the release. Not that I'm plugging my record.
Well, how are people going to hear it unless you plug it a little bit?
It's a CD DVD. So, and the DVD is sort of a making of it. Every etude is done in its entirety, so it's a visual album of sorts. But there's a lot of interstitial footage during the recording process, and it's sort of, I suppose, a little bit of a portrait of me too, sort of showing my obsession with counting the right amount of rice that I have to put in the balloon that needs to pop over the strings, and all these elaborate setups. And the filmmaker, Stephen Taylor, is incredibly talented and just has such an eye, and just, all of these very beautiful up close. And he really captured the other thing. It's a great document of the piece because it really captures everything I did. Everything's very up close, and you can see every weird thing with the talking doll and every finger scrape, and and if you're wondering what it was that you heard on the record, you could watch the video and see. It's been just a huge journey. So one of these etudes on the John Zorn record is it utilizes the sound of changing your string as quickly as possible as a musical gesture. At the very beginning of this etude, the only instruction is a string breaks. It doesn't necessarily imply that you have intentionally broken it. So maybe it's an etude that you just sort of have on hand when a string breaks. But
reshuffle the cards if need be.
I've only performed it when I've intentionally broken the strings, I will admit.
Which string would you intentionally break?
Well, I have almost always chosen the G string, but especially on this guitar because it gets caught really easily in here because it's one of these sort of grooves in the neck. So I realized that it'd probably be easier for me to do the low E or the high E because then I could change it quicker and therefore execute the piece even more accurately. But it's also a very musical tune. It, not unlike this podcast where first you change it as quickly as possible, ensuring extraneous noises, and then you tune up, and there's an instruction to improvise, and a bunch of so there's a sort of sense of like tension and growth, and then all of a sudden music explodes out of it, and it has a form to it like any. And it's always a great hit with the audience, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I can imagine, because everybody, it's like, it's a performance nightmare made into a piece. Well, I first got to know you through your work with the Dither Quartet.
Yes.
How did you become involved with the Dither Quartet?
About when I was moving to New York, I did the Bang in a Can Summer Institute, and that's where I met, a lot of great composers and musicians that I still work with today, including Taylor Levine, who is also one of the founding members of Dither. And it was his idea. He really wanted to get a group together because we had the scores to some of the Fred Frith quartet pieces. Also bootleg scores. We started actually first, we played a duo by David Lang called Warmth that we've still played quite a bit. It's sort of become a staple of our rep over the years. Then we thought, we should get people together to play these Frith pieces. And it just sort of grew from there. And it was, from the very start, it was me and Taylor and Josh Lopes, and at the time Simon Kafka was our fourth guitarist, and that seat has changed a few times. We've had David Linneberg for a while, and now we have Gian Riley. It's been a group that's just very naturally grown. It just sort of felt that every time we played a gig or finished a project, it piqued somebody else's interest who wanted to write for us or wanted to book us, and it's sort of just got a life of its own very quickly. And
would you say that even though like you all have a common purpose in Dither, do you all have different backgrounds?
There is a common thread in that I think we all grew up playing rock and roll and liking loud music, and then we also all then went on to get formal training. Taylor and I and Gian all studied classical guitar. Josh studied some classical guitar, but went to school for jazz, and he's a composer as well. And the common thread is that we sort of were trying to find ways to marry all of our interests. And it's not a unique thing to want to combine your disparate interests, but it's an interesting equation, especially when you're given music by composers that require some serious reading chops and things like that.
What's up next for the Dither Quartet?
The biggest thing we've been doing lately has been the Steve Reich Electric Counterpoint project. And the next gig for that is in November in London at the Barbican. We're doing one of these big Steve Reich birthday things, and also playing a few other pieces on that. We also recently have been doing this project with a theater group called Object Collection called It's All True. And that premiered in Norway in in March? It's a piece with 4 guitars, 2 drums, and 4 speaker singers. And it's all based off of everything from Fugazi's live concert archive except the songs. So it's a lot of tuning, actually, which is appropriate for what we're doing here. And it's all of the text is based off of stage banter and a lot of noise and weird things. And Travis Just, the composer, created a monster of a piece out of this. And it's been very, very crazy and exciting to work on. So there's more ahead for that, too.
And funding for that is available in Europe.
Yeah, we're also cutting our next record. We did all the tracking, and we're in the mixing process right now. So hopefully you'll be hearing that record sometime early next year.
Looking forward. Let's check our tuning now that we're all
right.
ready to roll.
In our Chet Atkins specialty tuning here, or in your case, the Robert Fripp tuning, right?
Yes, NST as it's called. So what are we going to play today?
Well, Patrick, I chose a song that I love by Chet Atkins called Waiting for Susie B, which I think sounds very nice, especially on a newly stringed national. And I thought it would be nice to do something acoustic. And I actually don't know a lot about the song. I just, when I listened to it again today to remind myself of it, and I learned that Susie B is, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but Susie Bogus. Is that another folk musician that Chet worked with? And she was late for a studio session one day, and he wrote the song.
Okay.
And
well, that was going to be my question. Did she ever show up?
Yeah, I think she probably eventually did. Yeah. And people can write in and correct me on pronouncing her last name if I have that wrong. There's a great YouTube video of him playing it. I forget on what show it's on.
Charlie Rose.
On Charlie Rose. And he's singing to himself while he plays. And it looks like he's singing words, so I think there must be some words to the song, but I couldn't find those online anyway. So if anybody knows that answer, please get a hold of me and let me know, because I'd love to know the words to this.
Well, I know I've written some music where I have my own private lyrics that nobody else knows.
Yes, I think that might be the case with this one.
Good.
So shall we hit it?
Sure. never ends.
It never ends.
Well, thanks, man. That was great.
That was lovely. It's been great to be here and witness your lovely Strings and Things operation and be a part of it.
Well, tell us, if people want to find out more about you or your music, where should they go?
I have a website, as many do, jamesmooreguitar.com, and it will hopefully be updated. It often is.
And that's Moore with an E.
Moore with an E. JAMESMOORE guitar.
Well, thank you very much, and I will be seeing you soon.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. Our guest has been James Moore, and you can find out more about him on our website at stringsandthingsshow.com. Check out more about all of his music at his site, jamesmooreguitar.com. That's JAMESMOORE guitar.com. Special thanks to Vox Amps USA, D'Addario Strings, and Electro Harmonics, New York City. I'm Jocelyn Gonzalez on the Zeros and Ones, and Patrick Grant is our host and axe wrangler. Strings and Things is a Pepper Green production for Headstepper Media. See you next time.